Welcome to episode 84 of the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. In this episode, I visit with Cary, the co-founder of Pilot House Distilling in Astoria, Oregon. And before the podcast gets started, I have to clean up some stuff. I recorded this episode in May of 2021. It's now October of 2021, and yes, next year will be 2022. I tell you that because throughout the course of this podcast, for reasons I cannot explain, I like to blame the alcohol, but I had a lot more alcohol after this podcast than before it or during it. I keep referring to the year 2020 and saying next year's 2021. I did not record this podcast in 2020. Didn't do much in 2020 like a lot of you in the depths of the pandemic. So when you hear me say 2020, I've edited a lot of them out. But you hear me say that, please forgive me. I have no idea what was going on. And one more thing I want to mention. I have fallen in love with the spirits they make at Pilot House Distilling. Their Painted Lady Gin is amazing. I've enjoyed their Diablo, Azul, and Nejo. It's an agave spirit, very akin to tequila. If it was made in certain parts of Mexico, it would be marketed as a tequila. It's 1 year barrel aged. It is a sipping spirit. It is absolutely incredible. And the third one I want to mention, and we mentioned this on the podcast as well, but I've since consumed a number of bottles of it since this podcast, and that's their Painted Lady Barrel Aged Gin. And this is a sipping gin that just kind of messes with your mind. If you love gin or if you love whiskey, I would encourage you to check out this gin. It is pretty phenomenal. Painted Lady Barrel Aged Gin. All right, without further ado, here we go. Episode 84, Culinary Treasure Podcast. Welcome to the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. Today, I am one lucky dog. I do love me distilleries and distillers. Find myself on the Oregon coast here in Astoria, Oregon, with Cary, Pilot House Distilling. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm great.
Hi, just delighted to be here. By the way, for you listeners, if you want to see all of my Oregon coast content, be it culinary podcasts, craft beer podcasts, travel articles, or this is Culinary Treasure articles, you can go to Adventures on the OregonCoast.com, links to all the different Culinary Treasure Network content that we produce. So, distilling, I've been coming here for a long time, I have to tell you. And your Painted Lady, I thought was great gin.
Thank you.
Until I had the Painted Lady Barrel Aged.
Right.
And I'm a cross drinker. I drink everything. I have yet to find a spirit I don't like. Some are weirder than others. But gin is my absolute favorite. I love me a gin martini, 3 olives, and I just am blown away by your Painted Lady. So I'm a longtime fan.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Fun one to make.
So questions to ask all of my guests on all my podcasts. Where were you born?
I was born in Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And where'd you go to high school?
Valhalla High School.
And that's in San Diego area?
San Diego area, East County.
And what's the mascot there?
The Norse god, Norseman.
The Norseman.
The Norseman, yeah.
All right.
Sorry, you throw me way back. I'm getting old these days.
I know the feeling. Okay, so as I understand kind of your geographic story, some point after school, you moved to Portland. You lived there, about 10 years or so.
Correct.
Then you headed to Tennessee for a couple years, which is kind of where your distillery journey begins in one sense.
Correct.
And then it was time to move back to the Northwest, and you chose to come to Astoria. Why Astoria?
It was geographically situated to the close to the beach and close to Portland, where I have some loved ones I like to visit.
Okay, so you wanted to be close to Portland and on the coast.
Correct.
So you got you don't have a lot of options. People don't realize you got Seaside, Cannon Beach, maybe Tillamook, Astoria.
Right.
I think you made a great choice. I do love me some Astoria.
I do too. And I used to come through here in the 90s, and that's when you'd come through Astoria with a heavy foot, trying to get out of it. Either you wanted a beer or a black eye, or you just drove right through it. But it's come a long way, and it's a great little town.
Does it feel like home now?
It does. I've been here for 10 years now.
Yeah, so I didn't mention, so 2011 is when you moved back to the Northwest and back to Astoria. And shortly thereafter, you actually started distilling in your home, kind of as a hobby. But before that, tell me about your experience in Tennessee that kind of sparked that journey, catalyzed it.
Yeah, so we used to go to the holler. I know it's very... what is stereotypical to say that, but my parents lived in a holler in Salina, and they one day brought this plastic jug out, and it was full of moonshine, and I tried it, and I was like, I can do better than this. This is just not good at all. And that's where it started. And I started looking for classes. And when I got up to the Northwest, I needed something to do besides traveling and work. So that was my escape.
So back to the hauler. For those that don't know, kind of describe what's a hauler like?
A hauler is a little piece of land between two valleys or two hills, and it had a little stream, and you'd sit out there and watch the fireflies and sweat bullets and drink some moonshine.
And drink bad moonshine.
And yeah, this one was come from the constable.
So you had a sense even then, like, I've had that when I've eaten certain dishes. I know I can do this better. I don't know how, but I know I can. And so you'd never distilled before, but you just had a gut sense. This is good, maybe, or maybe this is bad, but there's got to be a way to make this better, and I bet I can.
Right, and that's exactly what I did. And first thing I did is dive into books and started researching the science, the background. How do you do this? And then just started practicing and taking courses.
So you would travel to these courses. Where are some of the places you traveled to? I've
been to Denver for some courses. I did a lot up in the Puget Sound area. Those were always the fun ones. San Diego, you've got White Labs down there, does some nice courses. So I wound up spending a lot of money just traveling around to do this.
So this was a hobby, but you were very serious. You were taking this seriously.
It took a hold of me, yeah.
And I suspect that you were had stuff bubbling away at home.
Always, yeah. Always having stuff percolating on the kitchen counter.
So you started out with sugar washes. And then later, eventually, some of the stuff that you made at home. You made some gin?
I make gin, jumped into rums. Now, I took a different approach on the rums. I wanted more English-style rums, so I did more molasses base. So that was a lot of fun. It's tequilas. Learning how to handle the different substrates helps as you get into bigger distillation.
And then it's December 2014, you open here in Astoria.
Right.
Which is pretty amazing. But what sparked that? When did you say, you know what, I got to open my own place?
I was up at Puget Sound doing a week-long course, and I just called a friend and we started talking, and he encouraged me. He said, just do it. You're not happy with the job you have now, and you need to surround yourself by people who are going to encourage you to be the best person. And that's what I did.
So you called a friend, and the friend was actually encouraging.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, wearing my Life Story Alchemist hat, I help people with life change because I changed my life completely, have a career I love now. And I tell people it's so important if you're going to change your life to tell people who will cheer you on, because most people won't. They just can't see the person that you could be, let alone the person you are. They don't have to give to vision. And what a blessing you got for your friend is like, I think I'm going to open my own distillery, which sounds kind of crazy, I have to be honest.
It is, in hindsight.
Yeah, but only the crazy stuff's fun. And he actually encouraged you. What? That's fantastic.
Right, yeah, so I was very blessed. And it kept me moving forward when I needed someone to talk to.
Good. And then when you opened, I suspect that when you finally opened, what you had on the shelf was clear spirits. That a little quicker to make those than whiskey.
Right, so as I like to say, the clear pays for the aging of the stuff in the barrels. So we started with the vodkas and then gins, and then you start just building a profile over time.
And what was it? What was it like? Now I know you love whiskeys. When your first whiskey was finally available and you were able to bottle and sell it, what did that feel like?
It's exciting, really, and especially when you're sitting some bar and no one knows who you are, and they order your cocktail or your drink. It's gratifying.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I think stills visually are just captivating. I have lots of photos of, different distillers. I've been to of the stills. I think they're amazing. So talking about the current still, the one that you started with.
Right. So the little one I got in the back now is a 250-gallon pot still with a reflux column. It's a workhorse still. It can do everything, multiple stage passes. It can get me up to vodka level with some hard work. So yeah, it's been great. It's electric heated into a chamber of oil wraps around it, so we don't have any scorching. So if you got grain inside your wort in there, it's not going to scorch.
Nice.
So that's real good.
And then we'll talk in a minute, toward the end of the podcast, about an amazing expansion you have going on. But part of that expansion includes a new still coming. Talk to me about that new equipment that you have coming.
Yeah. So, my little one has given me a lot of enjoyment. And so the next one we built is based on that one, just a much larger scope. It's 5,000 liters, so 1,300 gallons. The small still has a 12-inch diameter column. This one's 26 inches. I'm going to have lights in it so we can see from the outside at night. It's a great machine, and I'm really excited to get it.
Now, who designed that still, that new one?
This is a company out of Canada called Pacific Mechanic.
Now they're building it, but you had a hand in designing it, right?
Yeah, this is what I want, and I got carte blanche to sort of do what I do, and that's really a gratifying feeling to see that.
I'm sure there's distillers listening right now that would love to someday get to design their own still and then work with someone that would make it.
Right.
That just must be a fantastic experience.
Right? It really is, and I'm excited. My wife knows it. I live and breathe this stuff nonstop.
And in my world, in my opinion, there's a lot of there's both art and science to a lot of the culinary stuff, whether it's chefs or brewers or chocolatiers or distillers. The artistry side, I can taste it in the glass, I can see it on the labels. But talk to me about one of the things that really just tickles your fancy, to turn over a phrase, is the science side. Talk about the science of distilling for you.
For me, it's the challenge. The science has been around for a long time. There's not a whole lot we can do. It's about understanding that science. So how does your yeast work with different substrates? So molasses versus agave syrup versus grains. We're pulling starches out different ways. What kind of enzymes are we going to need if we're not going to have a high enough Lettner content when we're doing a corn mash versus an old malted barley mash? So these are the things that really get me excited. I love to dive in and just learn all this stuff. And I understand the science of that still too. So a good distiller knows that, but also knows the art of the flavors. And that's something you can't just learn. I think I've been a cook. I've had restaurants. I do all this stuff. So for me, it felt natural to start blending different grains to come with a different profile.
You opened recently a tasting room in Portland. Now, we're out here today in Astoria, but you have a tasting room in Portland.
Yes.
And when did that open?
We opened that, we started March of last year, so right when COVID started.
Right when COVID started.
And we were just like, what are we doing? It's too late to get out of this. So we just kept going forward. My assistant and I, everything slowed down. We started making hand sanitizer. So we built out the tasting room ourselves. We spent nights in there in hammocks, doing painting, making bars, so I don't know if I'll ever do that again.
But that's what entrepreneurs do to make it happen.
You sort of have to do whatever it takes. I built out this one. I built out that one. I know we're looking to do another one in the future in a different location, but I don't think I'll get the pleasure of going down there.
Your hammock time may have come to an end.
Yes.
I love that story. And so people that live in the Portland area, a lot of listeners in the Portland area, they can head to the tasting room. Someday when all the COVID stuff is behind us, we're kind of in transition right now, but when it's all behind us, it's a place where they can sample stuff, they can buy stuff.
Correct. And we're going to feature a lot of North Coast beers. We're a tap house and a bottle shop as well there. So it's a new model for us. And hopefully that model we can promote Fort George and Bowie and some of the smaller breweries in town that people are not aware of.
So it's a tap house, so I can get beer to drink on site.
Yes.
Can I get cocktails on site?
Right now we can do mini cocktails.
Yeah, fantastic. I love this idea. And then, of course, I can get stuff to go.
Get them to go, yeah. Bottles of wine, spirits, of course, and beer, growlers that will come along, yeah.
That is just great. And then, and your hope, we can't say where, but your hope is to open another tasting room in some other part of the known world.
Yes, we've been looking at different. We don't have anything nailed down yet.
Yeah, I love the expansion. It just feels so right. Particularly having enjoyed your product for years, it makes perfect sense to me that you would expand. And then you've got a big expansion.
We are super excited about this.
You've got something really big coming right on the water here in Astoria. Talk to me a little bit about this.
So, in 2019, in June 2019, we merged with Bowie Beer Company. We've always been friends. We opened basically at the same time frame. And I sat back here as a little distiller and watching this brewery just blow up. They had location, great beer, great food. And we've always talked about this possible merger. It finally came to head and really exciting because it gave us a lot of resources we didn't have to really start producing spirits. So yeah, we've got a 12,000 square foot building we're building on. We'll have the new 5,000 liter still, a 50 hectoliter mash tun, a mash press. So we're a little different when you go into the mash pressing. It's not like a lauter tun. We are going to feed the grains into the press, and it inflates and it takes the liquid out. So I don't have any more grain to deal with on my fermenting and my in my distillation. So it gives me ability to use a lot of different grains effectively and efficiently and higher quality and get a great product.
That's amazing. And then when people show up from the consumer end, you're going to have a fishbowl approach to your distillery.
Correct.
So as I'm walking around, I can kind of get a glimpse inside and see what's going on.
Right.
And then you're going to have a bar.
We'll have a bar. We'll have a tasting bar too. So if you don't want to just be drinking a gin and tonic, you want to have someone explain the spirits to you, there'll be a separate bar in that room where you can sit down and just do flights and talk to that person who will be knowledgeable in spirits. And then in the future, probably a few years down the road, the second floor of that building will be turned into a restaurant. And to get up to that restaurant, we have it designed where you will walk between the still and the column, because it will be all glassed in. So both sides. So you'll go upstairs and you'll see it.
That's going to be phenomenal. And so I know things, it's been different in the world lately, and even in construction in normal times, things change. But currently, when are you hoping for that expansion, that project to open?
We're hoping September we will have the production facility moved over there. Spring break, we want the oyster shack and the tasting room and the outside patio opened up.
That's good. That's exciting. And if someone's listening to this podcast and you discover it's summer of 2021, it hasn't quite opened yet, stuff just happens, hang in. I'm sure it'll happen quick, but I hope it happens at the time frame you're hoping.
We are too.
But regardless, what's that going to feel like when because this is kind of like the culmination. This is kind of almost what you envisioned without envisioning it. Am I right?
That's exactly it. I think I might be wrong. It's going to be like moving out of a college dorm or your first college little place where you had your cinder block shelves to a real house where you can do things, and that you always have some mythical, romantic version of what this place was.
Yeah, you're no longer having to cook just with a microwave and a hot plate.
Correct.
You'll have two ovens, and you'll have an actual stove, and
I get to take that step as a distiller. So the excitement is crazy.
Oh, that is amazing. And one of the things I've been added lately to my bailiwick of skills is video. When you get close, it'd be fun to shoot some video and let your fans see. That would be really good. Okay, so the stuff that you make, so you make a number of different vodkas.
Right.
So walk me through, just so people that aren't familiar with what you guys currently distill. What are some of the things that people can enjoy?
Well, we'll start in the clear spirits. So we do your classic vodka, no frills. I try to keep it real clean and simple. We do a jalapeno lime vodka, a lemon ginger vodka, a chai vodka, and a cucumber vodka.
Cucumbers are really good.
Yeah, if you like that fresh cucumber, it's right there. No extracts. It's all natural, all herbs put into it and done that way. We do a coffee liqueur. This is a high-proof coffee liqueur. We use Thundermuck, so that's, if you know Thundermuck, that's a local roast done by the Columbia River Coffee Roasters. This is a high-proof, again, it's 80 proof, very low sugar content, so it's really coffee and spirit forward in your face.
So if you've had a rough night, and instead of a cup of coffee and a hair of the dog, you could just have a shot of that and a little bit of cream, and you're fine.
It will get you going, yeah. Then we do 3 gins. Now, we do the Painted Lady, which is my flagship gin. She's my favorite. If I go on a desert island, she goes with me. She doesn't allowed to come home with me too often because I've been known to put a bottle back. But so we do the Painted Lady. We do a barrel-aged Painted Lady. We age that in Pinot Noir barrels from the valley. And then we do the London Dry style, the Bar Pilot. And then we do 3 different styles of tequilas, or agave spirits. Sorry, they're going to come after me. We do a Reposado, a Blanco, and an Añejo.
So tequila, the rules are that it has to be made in there's a couple different regions in Mexico where quote-unquote tequila is made.
Correct.
But tequila is made from the agave plant.
Yes.
And they take the agave plant and they do some magic and they make a distilled spirit.
Right.
Right. You're taking agave plant and you're doing the same magic and you're making a distilled spirit. They just don't want you to call it tequila.
Correct. So,
but it's not any different. I've tasted your tequila, your agave spirit. It's not any different.
No.
I mean, other than some of them, yours are better than a lot of them I've had.
And thank you. And it's because we don't add anything into the fermentable mash to make it go further, if that makes sense. Yeah. We import raw nectar. It's considered a food from Jalisco, and then we ferment it in-house, and that's what's in my big tank going right now.
And and I'm a fan of tequila. I love all different. Well, cheap tequilas I just can't do. They give me a bad headache personally. But I love really good tequilas. But the interesting thing about tequila, out of Mexico, is if you look at the bottle, there's a 4-digit code, and it'll tell you where it was distilled. And there's not that many actual distilleries.
Right.
I mean, there's big distillery houses where they make like literally 30 different brands. And so I kind of lean toward, the smaller producers, kind of like I do with craft breweries, the smaller producers, so that they make their brand.
Right.
They don't have someone making it for them. Not that there's anything wrong with that model. I'm not saying that's a bad model. I just like the person that actually tinkers with it and does it. And that's the fun thing about yours is you're tinkering, you're making your own agave spirit.
And it's delicious. I love it. Yeah. That's the one we're allowed to bring home.
And what of the three, what's your personal flavor?
I like to sip on it, so I'm the one we're going to try later. The Añejo. My wife likes the Blanco. She likes the citrus notes in it. She sips on it, and she can make margaritas and not feel guilty.
I like that. Okay, and then
digressed onto tequila.
That was good.
We do an absinthe. So I do an old world style absinthe. It is made with wormwood, fennel, anise, and then we color with hyssop, lemon balm, and peppermint. It's a multi-stage fermentation and coloring process. So it is a long process, but the flavor palette is just wonderful on an absinthe. So I recommend everyone try it if you can handle black licorice flavor.
And absinthe is really old school.
Really old school. This was created by Swedish nuns for stomach ailments in the 1600s. It fell out of fashion once the temperance movement was going around, and it just started coming back in about 2000, I want to say 4.
And there's, you get your sugar cube, right? That's the real old school.
If you come in here in our tasting room, we'll set you up with our fountain with sugar cube and everything. That's the way we like to present it.
I've had that here, yes. And the sugar cube is part of the history of it, right?
Yep.
Part of this whole, the fun theater of absinthe.
Exactly. It helps get rid of some of those bitter notes too. You're going to find from wormwood.
And then, why make absinthe? I mean, that's almost as weird as aquavit.
Right. I made absinthe as a challenge to myself. Can I do this? And yeah, you can make any spirit, but the thing is, can you make it good?
Yeah.
And that's the trick. And my absinthe, I think, is on par with anyone else's.
So people because absinthe is not as known of a spirit. A lot of people may never had it. So it's got strong licorice flavor.
Right.
You can have it kind of by itself with the sugar cube. Do you make cocktails out of it?
Negronis. Monkey glands. I make a drink called an absinthe afternoon. That's Painted Lady Gin, absinthe, Cointreau, and it's go find a hammock and relax.
Wait. Tell me those 3 ingredients again, because you got me captivated.
Yeah, so it's equal. It's 2 parts gin, 1 part absinthe, 1 part Cointreau. It's sort of like a sidecar. You're not putting in any lemon juice. You're doing absinthe, and it's a delicious drink.
That sounds incredible. I'm all in on that drink.
It's a fun one.
Okay, and then so let's continue through your spirits past absinthe.
And then we do rum, which is sort of sitting down for a while until we get the new production facility, because we do a lot of spirits for a little tiny place.
Yeah, so rum's on hiatus right now.
Yeah,
but the current plan, no promises, current plan, rum comes back in the next couple of years.
Rum will come back. I don't know if it'll come back in the same fashion. Most American rum drinkers are not into an English style of rum. They're more into Spanish style. And what that means is all rums are, let me put my thoughts together right here. When you do rum, you do it from a sugarcane base, right? So it's either molasses, cane juice, or sugar. And those all correlate with the colonies in the United States, or not in the New World. So the French use cane juice, the Spanish use cane sugar, and the English colonies used molasses. And there were very historical reasons why. I like the molasses because I like that big, bold flavor you get from the molasses. I found it's not as popular, which is sad. And we barrel-aged ours in bourbon barrels for over 2 years. So it's a great rum. We'll see what happens.
Rum comes back, you may do more of a Spanish style.
I'll probably do more of a Spanish style. I won't take it off the still as high as they will. I still want some flavor profile, and I'll probably just use panela or some kind of brown sugar style to give it some flavor.
What's fun is that you're just kind of riffing on your head right now what you might do.
Right.
And I don't know what the actual recipe will be, but I guarantee you it'll be well thought out. You've done a lot of practice. It'll be something fun to kind of watch that unfold in the progress.
And this is where I get excited. I was like, what do I get to make?
Okay, and then
let's segue into our whiskeys. So we do right now 2 style whiskeys. I do a single malt and I do a bourbon whiskey. I could do a straight bourbon whiskey, which is a little different, but we're not pulling out of the barrels yet, so we're not saying it's ready. It is at aging proof. We're over 2 years old. I can bring them out, but we'll wait. So we do have the single malt, the AO, come hell or high water. That one we age for 2 years in the back. And then once it's hit that aging requirement, we throw it on some commercial fishing ships, and they go fishing for the season. So if you look at the bottle, it'll tell you what it was fishing for, what ship it was on, and when it came back in.
And the fishery.
Yeah. So on that.
Okay. So Brennivan is this company, Scandinavian country, and they put their aquavit on boats, and it rides around in the holds of boats, and they're convinced it improves it.
It surely does.
And so this is like 8 months at sea.
Right.
So you're doing Flying Dutchman Winery, Otter Creek, Oregon. He jokes, that he has salt air fermentation. He has that on his label, kind of tongue in cheek. Although he does ferment right on the ocean, and there are some salt crystals when he does crush. So there's something there. So you're doing like a ocean fermented process.
Basically, yeah. So we're taking these barrels, and they're on the wheelhouse or the pilot house, we'll say, for them, and they mount them, and they're out there. So we have some in Alaska right now. They're crabbing out the Washington and Oregon, shrimping. It really does affect the flavor profile. If you just think of the barrel, it sits there, you have a lot of volume to very little surface area. But once you start moving that around, you're exacerbating that aging process. And then you're bringing in all this salt water that's coming in and that air. So it gives it some nice notes. And we'll find that one out too.
That is just, where did you get this idea? That is just phenomenal. Is it from like Brennivan?
Well, I used to make an aquavit, and I like Brennivans a lot. I was talking to some friends and co-owners of the company, and he was able to get a ship for us to put for a trial batch, and it just flew out the door, and it tastes great. So we're just trying to keep going.
So how exciting will you be when you get the note, hey, we're coming in, come pick up your whiskey?
Oh, it's fun to watch, yeah. I got to go grab it, forklifts and cranes, pull them off, and then last year they had some really great seasons, so they're all excited. They thought it was good luck charm. And we do wax it up real good so they can't be dipping into it.
That's just so romantic and evocative and legendary. It's just, wow, that is phenomenal. I have some other questions about the whiskey. We'll come back to that. So you do a single malt, and then you do I
do a bourbon primarily. If you want to get into the bourbon classifications, there's a bourbon whiskey, which doesn't have an aging requirement, and then there's a straight bourbon that has aging requirements. So we do both. But the straight bourbon's not being released yet. Last time I released a straight bourbon, it was a 4-year-old straight bourbon. This one will probably hit 3 years old.
And is the reason that it's going to be 3 because you're guessing that's when it'll be tasting to your preference?
That, and then I'm waiting to move facilities.
Ah, got it.
It's just easy. It's hard. We play a lot of Tetris in this little tiny place, moving things around, so if we know we're canning for a day or bottling for a day, it's a lot of prepping before we can do any actual bottling.
Yeah, I've been around some small distilleries and small breweries, and it's hats off to you guys and gals that make that magic happen.
Right.
You're just trying to figure out space. Tetris is the right word. So in a perfect world, the future, 10 years down the road, you love all the spirits you make, but your heart's really, really in the whiskeys and the agave spirits. Am I right?
Yes. So I would love to be able to focus full time on that. Before this COVID mess happened to our world, we were trying to go down to Hawaka and stuff to do some tutor mentoring down there, go hang out with them, do some agave harvesting, and then I wanted to walk through the whole process for a few months, but that stopped me. Hopefully we'll go back to that. But yeah, that's where we're heading. That's what this new facility is going to be able to do. It's going to give us the ability to produce.
Going on an agave trip, that sounds amazing.
Right? I was so excited, and then COVID stopped the whole world.
No, but that'll come back. That'll come back. And then in a perfect world, 10 years down the road, I'm pushing it out far on purpose. Where would you like to go whiskey wise? If you can wave a magic wand and do some of the whiskeys you want. Anything on the horizon you'd love to be able to do, you don't do yet?
We're gonna add in some rye, really high rye with high spiced alligator char barrels. So we're gonna give you a really deep flavor profile in there. We'll add those in. We'll have our bourbons. We'll go away from anything that's not aged at least 2 years once we can continue that momentum.
Yeah, it takes a lot of space.
It takes space, capital, and machinery. This is not an efficient distillery. I've learned to work super efficiently in an inefficient spot. So the excitement, again, to move, it's going to be nice and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do love me a good rye whiskey.
It's making a comeback. It's funny. It's like rye is that one weed we used to try to get rid of. But now everyone wants it. So then there's some fun crossbreeds that I'm going to get to play with once we get production up. It's always about that right there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is 2020. So I want to do like a follow-up podcast, like in 2 or 3 years, and just hear some of the science stuff and what you've been able to put together. And because I think
doors open, you got my number.
Because I can just, I wish we were filming this. If you're listening to this podcast, Larry's face and his whole spirit just lights up. A light comes out of his eyes when he starts talking about this and that and the other. And you just love distilling.
It is a passion. It took hold of me, and there's a couple things in my life that I'm adamant for. This one, I run, that's why I said we got to do it after I'm done running in the morning. Certain things keep me sane, and these are it.
That's good. All right, so we've got 3 amazing spirits. Which one do you want us to start with?
I'm thinking we start with the agave.
Okay.
I think it's this one. Yeah. So this is our añejo. And this is our first release on añejo. We've only been able to do one batch. I've got a batch aging.
So for those that don't know, talk to me about what at the añejo.
The añejo is it's an agave spirit. It is aged for at least 1 year in new American oak barrels. This one comes really well. We only use 100% agave. Again, we don't cut our agave wort with a sugar wash to extend it. So you are getting 100% organic agave. And you should do a podcast on people how to read spirit bottles.
Okay.
Because that's people, I don't think they know what all this means when they look at stuff.
Well, tell me what I should look for on this bottle.
Well, this bottle is pretty simple. We are one of a few in the Northwest who are making agave spirits. Agave spirit is a new line for the federal government. They do recognize it now. We haven't got all those gnomes and those numbers that you would see on a tequila bottle, and that's what people should look for.
Yep.
If it says 100%, but it's not saying agave, that's telling you something's going on. And then look for that producer, look for that NOM and those numbers. Learn to read what your different classifications of whiskeys are. That's a big one.
Well, I know for me, if it's not 100% agave tequila, it gives me a headache.
It's because it's cut with sugar.
Yeah, and that's
the sugar wash.
Exactly, and they can say 100%, but when they, like you said, it's trickery when they don't say 100% agave.
That's when the marketing people got involved.
Yeah, those dirty dogs.
Right.
But yours is 100% agave.
100% agave, yeah. And it's just a great sipper. And this is our first batch release. We can't wait. We're starting to do more and more as those facility grows. Sorry, my team's showing up.
Yep, if you need to...
No, we're all good.
The flavor, this is a sipper. This is fantastic.
Honestly, I'm going to say I've tried to make all my spirits a sipper. You should be able to enjoy the spirit on its own before you do anything else with it.
Amen to that.
Just like anything else, if you can't enjoy it by itself, then maybe you shouldn't buy it.
Wow, I'm really impressed by this.
Thank you.
A good sipping tequila. I do love me a good sipping tequila, and this is phenomenal. Okay, what are we gonna try next?
I think we'll segue over into the single malt.
Okay, now for those that don't know, tell us what a single malt is and why that is such a fantastic thing, a single malt.
Well, single malt, just like it says, it's one grain bill. When we do a bourbon, there's usually multiple grains. Single malt could be any malted grain. I use a two-row pale to do this one. It's a real clean whiskey. This one's been aged for 2 years in the back in new American oak barrels. Again, and then this one went out to sea. So I think this one spent 7 months on the South Bay. I think it was, if this is batch 4, 7 months in South Bay, and he was shrimping.
That's just, and they thought it was good luck.
He loved it. Yeah, he came back for more and more. He just got his license to go up there, his tags to do crabbing next too.
So AO, come hell or high water, single malt whiskey, and the AO. Tell us what that stands for.
AO, it's real simple. It stands for Astoria, Oregon. Early on when I started all this, I went through a series of lawsuits, and I'm not allowed to talk about most of them. They have gag orders on me.
Because you'd have a name of something close to someone else.
Right.
Or they thought you did. And
the big guys can push you around, even though you trademarked it. If you can't afford to protect that trademark, you lose that trademark, is what I learned. And I did, when you start a distillery, especially on a shoestring budget like I did, as soon as you've had one hiccup, then less money. And for me, it steamrolled like 4 in a row, all within a year. And I was like, okay, come get me with Astoria, Oregon. And so it just sort of stuck.
That makes sense. Yeah, you have the trademark, but again, that's the thing. If you don't defend it, you lose it.
Exactly.
And they know that they can outsue you.
Right.
So they say they don't care.
And that's what happened with me, some very large companies.
Those dirty dogs. But I'm glad you've persevered and survived. And the AO, it just kind of, if you don't know, it just kind of sounds like it's fancy, it's cool, it's like top shelf or something. AO, right. I don't know what it means, but it's amazing. And then when you find it's Astoria, Oregon.
That's it, just something simple.
Okay, this is also just a fantastic sipper.
I think it's a great one. We just got the U.S. Spirits rating gave us a 96 points on this one. So I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, this is, I could sip this all day long, but one of my favorite cocktails other than a gin martini is I love me a good old fashioned.
Yes.
And I'm sure this makes a phenomenal old fashioned.
I would make you some if I was allowed to here.
That's good. Okay, and now Painted Lady barrel-aged gin. So you have 2 different Painted Ladies. You have regular, and then you have the barrel-aged. Talk to us about the barrel-aged.
Well, it's just based on the Painted Lady, which is a very herbaceous American-style gin. And then we've taken her and we put her for a year in Pinot Noir barrels that we go down and pick up from the valley. And it worked out beautiful. It's just a great gin. This one I just put a rock in. This is another sipper.
It is. Yeah, I was just thinking. It feels. I want people to do whatever they want to do with spirits. I'm not I don't have any rules. I don't care if you like it, drink it, find what you like and enjoy it. But I would have a hard time encouraging someone to make a cocktail out of this because it's perfect just to sip. And
this is another one that I have a hard time taking home with me because she'll works magic on me that night. I usually finish a bottle. Yeah, if I'm
some evening, if I'm watching, say some series and I can, just binge watch 3 or 4 or 5 episodes and I had this and a bottle of this,
right?
I'd probably watch more episodes than I would intended and I'd probably drink way more of that because it's perfect, it's smooth, it goes down easy, and you want another one, and you want another one, and you want another one.
That's what happens, especially around the campfire.
Okay, so you're going to think I'm nuts, but I think this with some s'mores works just fine.
Yeah. S'mores always win.
S'mores kind of pair with anything, really. Right? Yeah, I could have the s'mores with actually any 3 of these. Wow, this is amazing. Well, Larry, I've been a fan for a long time.
Thanks, Steve.
It's been a delight to have you on the podcast and to hear your story. And to, again, I wish we were filming, wish people could see your passion for the science and the passion for the distilling. I love the products you make. I'm so excited for your expansion.
Thank you.
And to do some follow-up. It's just kind of when you get to see someone that put their heart and soul in and started a business, and then they get to live out the thing that they almost didn't want to hope for.
Right.
That's gonna be a beautiful thing.
I'm again overjoyed. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. No, I look forward to shooting some video out there so people can see the space, and then at some point, a couple years down the road, I want to do a follow-up podcast and talk about your new equipment and how it was to calibrate the system and where you actually ended up with any thoughts about rum. Yes or no? Oh, we're doing it. No, we're not. Oh, we're doing it this way. And then your new whiskey thoughts, because I guarantee 2-3 years from now things will evolve. You'll have run things through your whole whatever system you use, working there, the gears in your brain, and come up with some really fun stuff. So it's been a delight to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
All right. Cheers.